It was a morning like any other in the small Italian town of Lucca. The sun filtered softly through the lace curtains of a modest home, where the air smelled faintly of lavender and candle wax. But within those four humble walls, a fire was about to ignite, a fire invisible to the world, yet destined to burn through time and history. Her name was Gemma, only 20 years old, her body frail, weakened by illness, but her eyes carried a light that no one could explain. She didn't chase the world, nor did she seek attention. She lived quietly, humbly in prayer, yet the heavens in their mysterious wisdom chose her, not for power, not for prestige, but for purity. And because of that, the entire nation of Italy would one day tremble at the words spoken through her lips. Gemma Galgani was not a name known to the powerful. She was a noblewoman, nor a scholar, nor a voice that echoed in marble halls. She was a girl in silence, in pain, in prayer. But that silence was shattered when the supernatural began to whisper. The first vision came like a lullaby, gentle, almost maternal. A woman, robed in white with serene face, appeared to Gemma and spoke words that wrapped around her heart like a warm embrace. But peace was only the beginning. The second vision came with thunder in the soul. The air grew thick, the room dimmed, and there he was, Jesus Christ, crowned with thorns, his gaze filled with an aching love that burned. He looked into Gemma's soul and said, "Offer me your sufferings. Many walk toward the abyss, and few listen. You will be my victim of love." From that moment on, her life was no longer her own. The stigmata appeared, wounds on her hands and feet, bleeding every Thursday night, a silent echo of the passion. Her tears mixed with blood, and her heart beat in rhythm with Calvary. Each week, a new Golgotha unfolded in her small room, and yet she never complained. She embraced the pain like a bride embraces her groom, willingly, lovingly, fiercely. People around her began to notice. Some whispered of madness. Others stood in awe. But the most faithful knew this was no illusion. This was heaven trying to speak. And in the silence of her ecstasy, words began to emerge. Words of fire and prophecy. I see a land in flames. I see the pain of Italy. But one region, one shall be preserved. A place where the Virgin will place her mantle. Only there will there be refuge. At first, no one understood. Even her spiritual directors wrote down her words cautiously, unsure of their meaning. But today, over a century later, we begin to see. We look at our country, divided, morally confused, spiritually wounded. Natural disasters, social unrest, a faith that seems to flicker in the wind. And suddenly, Gemma's words do not feel distant. They feel like now. She wasn't just speaking to her time. She was speaking to us, to you. And this is only the beginning. Gemma's revelations were not symbols. They were calls to awaken, to remember, to return. Her body bore the pain of Christ, but her soul bore a message. Italy would suffer, but it would not be abandoned. And now, before we go deeper into what she saw, into the terrifying yet beautiful truths hidden in her diary, I want to ask you something very special. You see, in our next video, we want to do more than just tell a story. We want to create a community of light, a family of hearts united in faith. So if this story has touched you already, leave a comment with your name and city below. Let us say your name out loud in the next video. Let the world see that you're part of this movement. Imagine that moment when thousands of people hear your name and feel inspired by your presence. A moment of light, a moment of unity, a moment of your voice being part of something sacred. So leave your name and your city in the comments. Tap the like button if this story is awakening something in you. And subscribe, because what we're about to uncover in the next chapter will change everything. Gemma saw more, much more. What exactly did she see in her visions that made even her confessors tremble? Let's go there together. It began with whispers, barely audible, like the rustling of angelic wings in the night. Gemma would lie in bed, her body still and weak, her soul suspended between earth and eternity. And then it would come. Light that wasn't from the lamp, warmth that didn't come from the blanket, voices that no one else could hear. Her visions became more frequent, more intense, as if the veil between heaven and earth had thinned just for her. She would write of nights where time itself seemed to stop, nights when the silence in her room was pierced by voices, some as tender as a lullaby, others filled with such sorrow that even the stars might weep. But not all the voices were from heaven. There were moments, frightening moments, when shadows crept around her bed, when groans filled the corners of the room, not from the living, nor from any creature we know. They came from realms no soul wishes to see. Still, Gemma never wavered. She would clutch her crucifix tightly and whisper prayers with the courage of a saint, though tears would stream down her cheeks. She knew that where there is light, darkness will always try to follow. Then came the vision that shook even her strongest supporters. One evening, as she knelt in prayer, her breath shortened. A heavy silence fell. Her eyes opened, transfixed by something unseen. And then she spoke, slowly, carefully, with a tremor in her voice. I saw a map of Italy, and a shadow began to fall, one region after another, swallowed in darkness. Each name faded as if forgotten. But then one land, just one, glowed with a light like gold. It was protected, untouched, as if a veil from heaven covered it. Those around her listened in silence, writing every word. The diary where she recorded this vision remained hidden for years, too strange, too prophetic, too raw. But time has a way of bringing truth to the surface. In that vision, Gemma wrote, all will be confused. Italy will weep, but one place will stand. The heart of the Holy Mother will dwell there. She didn't say where, but she left clues that scholars, mystics, and theologians have debated for decades. A land between hills and the sea. A people who still kneel in prayer. Churches, though empty of wealth, full of wounded hearts who have not stopped believing. Families that, despite hardship, still gather to whisper the rosary. A place where Mary would leave her mark. A spiritual seal of protection. Some say it is Umbria, land of saints. Others whisper of Tuscany, her birthplace. But maybe the answer lies not in geography, but in the spirit of the people who dwell there. Faith is not confined by borders. It is breathed into the earth by those who pray upon it. And as her visions deepened, so did the urgency of her words. One night, her face pale, her hands trembling from the wounds that still bled every week, she whispered, the confusion will not begin with war, but with the twisting of truth. I see lost souls calling good what is evil, and evil what is good. I see leaders fall, and the people left in despair. I see tabernacles abandoned, and the faith mocked. Those who read her words today cannot help but feel a chill, because it is no longer prophecy. It feels like a mirror. The signs are everywhere. In the scandals that fracture the church, in the broken families, in the loneliness that floods even the most crowded cities. Yet amidst all this, Gemma's voice rises, not with condemnation, but with love. She does not scream. She invites. She weeps. She hopes. And her hope was rooted in one thing, that the people would awaken before it's too late. In one particularly moving vision, Gemma described a woman, majestic, sorrowful, standing atop a hill with a veil of blue that flowed down to the sea. At her feet, a small village bathed in light, surrounded by darkness, not the darkness of night, but a darkness of the soul. And the woman, with eyes filled with tears and mercy, spoke only one sentence. In this land, my immaculate heart shall triumph. Those who were close to Gemma say that after this vision, she wept for hours, not from fear, but from love. She had seen the battle, but also the victory. She had seen the storm, but also the safe harbor. And if you are hearing these words now, perhaps it's because you are meant to be part of that harbor. Perhaps you are called to be one of the lights that resist the shadows, one of the voices that still believes, one of the hearts that Mary can rest upon. So stay close, because the next chapter will take us even deeper into what Gemma saw. Visions so clear, so intense, that many who read them asked, is this real? Could this truly happen? Or has it already begun? The air in Gemma's room had changed. Witnesses spoke of a stillness, as if time itself was holding its breath. Candles flickered without wind, and the scent of roses, sweet and unfamiliar, lingered without a source. It was during one of these nights, when the veil between heaven and earth thinned once more, that Gemma received a vision unlike any other. She saw a map again. Italy stretched before her as if carved from light. But this time it was alive. Regions pulsed and faded like beating hearts. And then the darkness returned. One by one, provinces disappeared under a shadow like ink spreading in water. Yet amid the gloom, one land remained untouched. One region, glowing with a gentle golden light. It shimmered as if cloaked by something not of this world. Gemma wrote in her diary, "I saw her, standing on a hill. Her veil stretched out like a sky of light. It covered villages, churches, children. Beneath it, peace. Outside of it, silence, despair, confusion. The Madonna, she stood not with a sword nor with wrath, but with a sadness so deep it ached through Gemma's soul. And yet her face held hope. It was a quiet triumph, a promise that no matter how deep the darkness, the light beneath her mantle would never be extinguished." Gemma tried to name the place, but heaven didn't give her that permission. All she could do was describe it. Rolling hills, a view that met the sea, and a people who still prayed together. Where churches, even when empty of wealth, never stopped welcoming the brokenhearted. Where homes, though battered by hardship, still echoed with whispered Hail Marys. "It is not the land," she wrote. "It is the hearts upon it." And so began a mystery that has endured through the decades. Scholars pored over her writings. Was it Umbria, with the spirit of St. Francis? Was it Loreto with its holy house? Was it the hills of Tuscany, her own birthplace? Or was it something deeper, a spiritual geography drawn not by borders, but by devotion? Gemma gave no definitive answer, because perhaps the question isn't where is the region, but are we part of it? This thought began to haunt those who studied her words, not with fear, but with urgency. Could we create such a region within ourselves? Could our homes become that glowing on the map? Could we, through prayer and love, be covered by that divine mantle? In another vision, Gemma saw a future, vague but vivid. She described a fog descending upon the country, not of weather, but of the soul. People wandered, blind not in sight, but in truth. They celebrated what once was condemned and mocked what once was sacred. She saw leaders stumbling, towers falling, and a great weeping from the people. Yet even in the chaos, a single thread remained unbroken. A candle still burns where the rosary is prayed. And wherever that flame remains, the shadow cannot enter. She was not speaking in metaphors, not merely in symbols. Gemma saw what was coming, and she saw how to endure it. Those closest to her said she wept not for herself, but for the children she saw in danger, the churches abandoned, the altars defiled, but also for the remnant, the faithful few who, even in silence, even in pain, kept praying. And it is those few that she believed would hold back the flood. She described them in one vision as a silent procession. Old women clutching rosaries, young men kneeling in empty churches, children praying at night beside their beds. She saw them walking together, like pilgrims in the dark, and behind them, light, growing, spreading. "These are the souls who will save what can still be saved," she wrote. "Not with weapons, not with power, but with faith. They are the region." Perhaps this is what we must ask ourselves today, not where the region lies, but who the region is. Could it be you? Could your home, your street, your church become one of those sacred places? As Gemma's visions deepened, her message became clearer. The physical may fall, but the spiritual cannot be touched if it is wrapped in prayer. And this was not the end. In her next vision, Gemma would see something even more disturbing. A conspiracy hidden in plain sight, a gathering of powerful men, a map, and a hand that burned when it tried to touch the preserved region. What was this force that sought to erase the light? And why couldn't it cross that one boundary? The days passed, and the weight of Gemma's visions grew heavier. She no longer slept as others did. Her nights were filled with cries from invisible realms, with whispers both divine and dreadful. There were moments she would fall to the floor, trembling not from fever, but from something unseen, something that reached into her soul and stirred a sorrow too deep for words. But she never turned away. She bore it all, like a torchbearer in a storm, refusing to let the flame die. In one of her most haunting experiences, Gemma found herself again drawn into vision. Those around her described it as terrifyingly beautiful. Her face glowed with strange light, and her lips moved as if speaking to someone no one else could see. A stillness took over the room, thick like incense. Then came her words, quiet but clear. I see a fog, thick as sorrow, covering the land. And in that fog, people wander. They do not see, they do not hear, and they no longer know what is true. She saw children forgetting how to pray. She saw tabernacles left untouched, Eucharist ignored, altars broken not by violence, but by neglect. Faith didn't vanish. It faded like a forgotten song. But even as she described these images, there was a tenderness in her voice. Her tone wasn't one of judgment. It was of grief and of hope. I saw candles, she said, tiny lights in the dark, homes where the rosary was still whispered, souls who cried out not in rebellion but in prayer. Those lights were few, but they were enough to hold back the flood. In a later vision, Gemma saw a river turning to blood, not of war, but of spiritual drought. People celebrated sin as if it were a virtue. Truth was mocked, holiness scorned. She saw powerful figures rise and fall. The people no longer knew who to trust. But in the midst of this chaos, she saw something astonishing. A woman, tall, luminous, and weeping, standing upon a hill. Her veil, long and blue as the sky, shimmered with golden stars. And beneath her, a single village glowed. No fire, no fear, only prayer. The Madonna, she cried with me. Gemma wrote, and her tears fell upon the land like pearls of mercy. In that moment, the vision changed. She saw a procession of souls, simple people, unknown to the world. A grandmother lighting a candle, a young child kneeling alone, a man in silence, holding a rosary in a field. And behind them, a trail of light followed, growing stronger with every prayer. And then came the words, not from Gemma, but from heaven. Only those who remain under my mantle will be protected. Only those who pray will be strengthened. The time is near. Gemma collapsed after the vision. Her body, fragile and trembling, could hardly carry the weight of what she saw. Yet when she spoke again, her voice was calm, steady, filled with love. Do not fear what is to come, she whispered. Fear only losing your faith. And so, dear soul, if these words are reaching your heart, if something inside you is stirring, then you are part of this light. You are one of those candles that heaven sees. And there is something you can do right now to keep that flame alive. Folded hands if you feel the presence of this message touching you. If your heart is opening to the call of prayer, write amen in the comments below. Let it be a word of surrender, a word of strength, a whisper to heaven that you are still listening, that your faith, even if small, is alive. Each amen you write is not just a comment. It is a seed of light, a ripple that may reach someone else, somewhere in the dark, and remind them that they are not alone, that the light is still burning. Write it gently, sincerely. Amen. Because what is coming next in Gemma's visions will show us that not even the powerful, not even the hidden forces behind closed doors could touch what was already sealed by heaven. A map, a gathering, a hand that burned when it reached for what belonged to the Virgin. What was it? Let's walk into the fire together. It was during a night of fever and stillness, when even the walls of Gemma's room seemed to listen, that the veil lifted once more. Those who cared for her said she had barely the strength to sit up. Her breath was shallow, her body weak. And yet, her eyes suddenly opened wide, not in fear but in awe. She was seeing something no human words could fully contain. There's a war, she said softly, but not of swords or guns. It is a war of hearts. She saw it clearly, a great battle not fought in the streets, but in living rooms and bedrooms, in churches half abandoned, in the silence of kneeling souls. The world didn't notice them, but heaven did. I see them, Gemma whispered, walking through the night, heads bowed, hands clasped. Some are old, others young. Many are alone, but their prayers are stronger than any storm. She called them L'anima silenziosa, the silent souls. They had no armor, no voices in the media, no seats in power. But they had something far greater. Faith carved by pain, love purified by loss, and a fire that no shadow could snuff out. In one vision, Gemma saw these souls moving through fields and forests, cities and ruins, always together, though never touching, like spirits linked by prayer, walking toward a destination only heaven knew. And behind them, a light began to grow, not fast but steady. They carried a rosary like a sword, she wrote, and each Hail Mary they whispered drives back to darkness another step. It was not a fantasy. It was a call. These were not saints carved in stone or sung in hymns. They were mothers washing dishes with a prayer on their lips, fathers going to work with a cross in their pocket, children praying before sleep, priests saying Mass in empty chapels. They were the remnant, and through them, the prophecy would live. Gemma saw cities falling, not from bombs, but from indifference, temples of faith turning into hollow halls. But again and again, she saw the flicker of candles. The silent army never stopped. In back rooms, basements, mountain paths, and even hospital beds, they kept praying. And heaven, she said, was listening only to them. They are the ones who will hold the mantle in place, she wrote. Not the proud, not the loud, but the broken hearts who still believe. One of the most breathtaking moments came in a vision that left Gemma speechless for days. She saw a single woman in a dark room, eyes closed, hands shaking, whispering a prayer no one heard. She was old, forgotten, alone. But then, a great light burst forth from her chest, and it reached across the sea, touching another soul, and then another, and another. Prayer was a thread, Gemma realized, and even the weakest voice, when spoken in faith, could echo across the world. Even if the church is persecuted, she said, even if faith is mocked, these hearts will not fall. They are the Italy of the future. Could it be that this is us? Could your quiet faith be part of this army? Because Gemma wasn't speaking only of the past. She saw us, those who would read her words, years later and feel them resonate, not as warnings, but as awakenings. And she left us a message. If you feel alone in your faith, you are not. Heaven sees you. The Virgin walks with you. And the fire you carry is not small, it is eternal. So wherever you are, if your soul has felt cold, if your prayers have grown tired, know this. You are not forgotten. You are seen. You are counted among the silent army. And in the next chapter, Gemma's visions will take us somewhere darker, but even more revealing. She saw men gathered in secret, around a map, hands dripping in ink, trying to touch what they could not possess. And when they reached toward a certain region, their skin began to burn. Why? What was it about that place or those people that made even darkness recoil? Gemma had long been accustomed to visions of beauty wrapped in sorrow, but nothing could prepare her for what she saw next. It happened just before dawn. Her body was weak from days of fasting and prayer. The room was dim, the candle beside her nearly spent. And then, without warning, her head tilted back, her breathing slowed, and her hands, still marked with the stigmata, began to tremble. Her eyes opened, but not to the room. She saw a hall, dark, silent, opulent, a long table, surrounded by men cloaked in shadow. Their faces were blurred, but their presence was heavy, like smoke you could not see but still tasted in your lungs. On the table before them, a large map of Europe, age-marked, torn at the edges, and at its center, Italy. The men did not speak with words. Their gestures were slow, deliberate. In their hands they held quills, not for writing, but for marking. And every time one of them touched a region with the ink, that part of the map darkened, first gray, then black. They moved across the land like vultures, marking and plotting. But then something changed. One of them pointed toward a particular region, small, near the sea, nestled among hills. As his inked hand reached forward, it paused. His fingers began to tremble. Then, in a moment that made Gemma gasp aloud in her bed, the man screamed. His hand began to burn. He recoiled, clutching his wrist in agony. The others looked on, frozen, terrified, not of pain, but of what they had just witnessed, because something or someone had intervened. And then came a voice, not loud, not angry, but majestic and unmovable. You cannot touch what my mother has consecrated." Gemma's whole body convulsed as she cried out those words. Her caretakers rushed to her side, unsure if she was in pain or ecstasy. But she was beyond them now, caught in the grip of revelation. That night, she would not sleep. She wrote feverishly, her hands trembling. They try to erase the light, but it is sealed. They try to silence the prayer, but it is echoed in heaven. The place they could not touch is not hidden by mountains, but by grace. The message was clear. There are forces seen and unseen that move through our world, whispering confusion, promoting division, erasing faith. They cloak themselves in politics, in ideology, in culture. But their goal is always the same, to separate man from his creator. And yet, there are places they cannot enter, hearts they cannot harden, families they cannot fracture, not because they are stronger, but because they are consecrated. Where there is prayer, Gemma wrote, there is protection. Where there is a rosary, there is resistance. She saw it not as fantasy, but as a spiritual reality, one that you can be part of, because the map is still before us. The forces still gather, but the light still burns. So let me ask you something from the heart. If you felt the truth of this story, if you sense that what Gemma saw is unfolding around us today, then don't let this message be another forgotten whisper. Click the like button, not just to support the video, but as a sign that you, too, are part of this light. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next, because we're building something together, a community of souls awake to the times we're living in and ready to pray, to act, to hope. You may think your name is small, your voice unheard, but heaven disagrees. And Gemma saw it. She saw the hidden ones becoming the chosen ones. In her final visions, the veil thinned completely, and what she saw beyond it may be the most important revelation of all. The heart of the nation, a glowing center, a flame that would not go out, even as everything else crumbled. What was it, and how could we enter into it before the final moment arrives? It was the last spring Gemma would ever see on this earth. Outside, the birds were singing. Inside, her room was filled with silence and light. Her body, now fragile as paper, barely moved. But her soul, it burned brighter than ever. The visions had become shorter, sharper, as if time itself was narrowing, as if heaven was speaking one final time before the curtain fell. On one particular morning, those who stood by her bedside would remember it forever. She lay still, her breath slow and soft. Then suddenly, she sat up, eyes wide, hands trembling, a tear sliding down her cheek. "I see it," she whispered. "The heart of a nation, glowing like fire, a light in the middle of darkness, a face in the flame. It's her, the Madonna." Her face was serene, her eyes full of sorrow and mercy, and in her arms not a sword, not a scroll, but heart, a glowing heart, radiant like the sun, beating not with blood, but with prayer. From that heart extended a mantle of blue and gold that swept across the land, covering homes, churches, children, even ruins. And beneath that mantle, Gemma saw people rising, not in rebellion, but in faith. Families once broken, now holding hands in prayer. Youth once lost, now singing hymns. Churches once empty, now full of quiet souls kneeling in reverence. She saw Italy not as it was, but as it could be, not through politics, not through force, but through one sacred truth. Jesus is still king, and only under his reign could the nation heal. "Don't fear the fire," she said, as if answering a question no one had dared ask. "Fear the coldness of a heart without faith. The fire will purify, the cold destroys." Her final vision was simple, but unforgettable. A heart, as vast as a nation itself, beating at the center of everything, wrapped in the mantle of the Virgin. And from that heart, flames reached out, touching every corner of the land. But the flames did not burn. They illuminated, and in the light, countless souls were walking forward, tired, wounded, but determined. They were the remnant, the future. "The future is not written in stone," she wrote on her last page. "It is written in prayer. Each Ave Maria, each act of forgiveness, each confession is a stone placed in the foundation of the refuge to come." Her breath grew weaker. Her eyes, still glowing, slowly closed. But the flame remained. And now, over a century later, you're reading these words. You are part of the reason this story was kept, part of the reason it still breathes through time. And so, dear soul, we ask you now, if you believe Jesus is the true king of this world and of your heart, write it boldly in the comments. Jesus is the king. Let those words ring through the darkness. Let them become your declaration, your anchor, your shield, because heaven still hears, and the time to hide is over. And if this message stirred something deep inside you, you are not alone. We are building something sacred, soul by soul, city by city. Leave your name and your city in the comments. We'll mention you in the next video with love, with prayer, with light. And now, don't stop here. The next revelation awaits. Click the video that is appearing on your screen right now. What you will discover there may open your eyes even more than this one. It's not just the end. It's the continuation of your awakening. Subscribe, like, share this flame. You never know who's in the dark, waiting for just a spark. Because sometimes all it takes to change a nation is one heart, one prayer, one yes to the call of heaven. And now that yes is yours to give,